Cameras all good at the back? Excellent. James, coach, can you just get the mic to James at the front here? Sorry. Thank you. Thank you very much. James, go ahead.
Ben, Pat was just talking about how a win like that can give huge belief. Conversely, how do you feel, and how much of a psychological blow is that?
No, it's not a psychological blow at all. I mean, obviously we're sat here an hour after the game which we've lost, so you know it's obviously very disappointing. But I think if you look at the way in which we've played over the last 5 days compared to sort of how the sort of last few Ashes series have gone, it proves that what we're capable of doing against Australia. The way in which we applied ourselves literally from ball one, proves that we're able to stand up to Australia in the way in which we want to play. It was a big question before coming into the series about are we able to still continue with the style of play against such a good Australian team, and even though we're on the wrong end of the result here, I think it proves that we literally went toe-to-toe throughout the whole game against Australia. So we've got 4 games left, and that's what we're going to be concentrating on.
A lot will be made of the declaration, which was typically aggressive on day one. If you had that time again, would you still do it?
Declare?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I'm a captain and a person who's seen that as an opportunity to pounce on Australia. No opening batsman likes to go out for 20 minutes before the close of play, and the way in which we played and took Australia on actually allowed us to be able to do that. I could also turn it around and say if we didn't declare, would we have got that excitement that we did at the end of day 5? I'm not 100% sure, but I'm not going to be looking back on this game as what ifs. There's so many things that happened throughout the 5 days which we could look back on and say if that went our way, could this game have been different? But the reality is that we just didn't manage to get over the line this week.
Do you think there was a deciding factor, or was it a number of factors?
To declare?
No, in terms of the result, because is it too simple to look at it as that one thing?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, you play cricket over 5 days. There's so many things that goes on that you could look back at, sort of 20 individual moments which you could go like, oh, if that happened, if that went our way, could this game have been different? But I don't like to look at things like that. At the end of the day, the game went down to the wire, and Australia managed to get over the line. This day in itself, there was so many opportunities that presented the game in our favour, but you just got to give credit to the way in which Pat in particular played. Nathan Lyon coming out at the end and managing to stick in there and get them over the line. It was an emotional roller coaster to be out in the middle there, especially being the person to have to make decisions. But I couldn't be more proud of the way in which we've operated from the start of this game, and especially the back end of today. Ollie Robinson and Stuart Broad put an amazing shift in there to nearly get us over the line, but nearly doesn't win you anything.
And on that note, how physically are they? How tired are they? And do you now rotate the attack with just 7-day turnaround?
Well, I think 7 days is actually quite a lot of time to give everyone a good rest. We'll meet up again in 3 or 4 days' time, I think, and we'll assess how everyone's going, and we'll have to make a decision from there. But I can't tell you anything at the moment.
And Moeen, his chances of being fit for Lords?
I think same again. It gives Mo a good chance for his finger to heal up, but again, we won't be able to make any decisions until we get down to Lords and meet up.
We'll go Barrett, Stocksy, and then Mel.
Ben, like you said, this is just the first test of the series. It's your first time against Australia with the new approach that your team has. So, what are the things that you can look at and say, look, this is how we played the game, and this is how Australia responded to it, and what are those takeaways for you? And then you're like, this worked and this didn't.
I think one thing we've always done is we concentrate on ourselves rather than the opposition, and look to always implement our style of play regardless of sort of what's going on from the opposition. Australia came into this game with tactics to sort of try and sort of counteract the way in which we play, but we were so close to sort of being here talking about in a different manner, but we will concentrate on the way and the positive things that we got out of this week, which there was a lot of, and as you said, there's still 4 games left. There's a lot of cricket still to be played, So that's what we'll be focusing on.
So just on that, can you just talk about some of those positives where like you're like, okay, this worked against whatever Australia were doing?
Well, I think obviously I said at the start there that there were so many questions around would we be able to implement our style of play against this attack, against this team. Not just with the bat but also with the ball against some unbelievable batsmen like Labuschagne, Steve Smith and Travis Head, and I think we've proved to ourselves that we can. And again, it just goes back to what I've said, is that we found a way in which gets the best out of ourselves as a team and the best out of everyone as individuals. I'm sat here as a losing captain, but I couldn't be more proud of the way in which we've operated and the amount of energy and effort that was put in across the whole 5 days from everyone involved in the game.
Ben, you've long said, entertaining people and trying to revive Test cricket is one of your number one aims. Does the fact that you've served up yet another kind of classic Test match for the ages so soon after Wellington, does that take the edge off losing and soften the blow of losing?
No, losing sucks. It's when you put any game you play, any sport you play, or anything you do, you always want to be the winner. But you're right. Not sort of putting the result at the top of everything that we sort of think about actually really helps us go out and play, free-spirited cricket. I know everyone who came out and supported us, who bought a ticket this week would have loved to see us win. Everyone who watches on TV would have loved to see us win. And we're desperately upset for them that they didn't manage to see England get over the line. But if people haven't been on the edge of their seat, throughout this whole Test match, sort of any situation that the game found itself in particular last hour, then I'm not quite sure what will in cricket. The amount of, the conversation in the dressing room there at the end, like even some of our support staff, their kids want England shirts now. Had a message from my neighbour saying his son was playing cricket on the weekend and he did what England would do in his situation. So when you put things into perspective like that about what we want to do in terms of just inspiring a generation, it's said a lot in cricket, but the amount of positive things that we've heard from the style in which we're playing is such a great thing to hear, that in 10-15 years time, when there's a few players who won't be around, that we've sort of managed to inspire them to pick up a cricket ball and a cricket bat. But don't get me wrong in what I've just said there, losing sucks. We'd always want to win.
And for all those people who've been inspired and gripped by this Test match, who now might be slightly worried that the Ashes aren't kind of slipping away maybe for England, what would your message be to those fans and those people?
I think it's a bit early to say that the Ashes are slipping away after one game. There's still 4 games left, so just keep following us and we'll keep trying to do what we do. I'll still be encouraging the players to keep that smile on their face and just enjoy every moment that we have out on an England field, because it doesn't last forever. It goes by quite quickly. But yeah, just keep following us, because we'll still be trying to do the same thing over and over again.
We'll do one each. Mel, Dan, Matt, and then we'll do Will and George and Adam and Fish.
Ben, I just wanted to ask how you are. It's not often we see you take a wicket, a really important wicket, and not even really celebrate. What was going on there? How are you?
I was absolutely flying on caffeine. So I had to keep myself pretty level, to be honest. Yeah, that was sort of a big reason. I was just sort of in my, all the lads were saying, "You all right?" And I was sort of not giving them much, but I was just sort of found myself in that sort of moment within the game where I knew it wasn't done. And yeah, sort of, if you look back 2-3 years ago, there would have been, the big celebration and all that kind of stuff. But, I just knew the moment of the game and what it was, and just sort of just trying to take everything as it come. And yeah, I just sort of sensed that was my time in the game to get myself on. And just sort of sensed that wasn't it. It was obviously a big wicket to get, but the game wasn't done, and I just sort of had to try really hard to keep myself level, because, as I say, I was flying high on caffeine.
So it was definitely nothing to do with the knee giving you any issues.
Look, I put my I've sort of put my body through actually sort of more than I think it's actually been through over the last year, which is obviously a great sign for myself, and another confidence boost for me. I can't remember how many overs I bowled there, but you know, getting through that sort of quite, I wouldn't say easily because it was tough, but getting through that knowing we've still got 4 games coming up has given me a massive boost. You know, I can't remember the last time I've sort of been able to continually bowl. So yeah, I was just sort of real happy that I was able to get a good long spell in, and you know, I just love being in that situation. I love bowling long spells, you know, especially when the game's on the line.
G'day Ben, just wanted to ask about what you thought of the surface, the way that it played, obviously produced a thrilling finish, and you know what we can read into that for, I suppose, the sort of surfaces we might get the rest of the series.
Yeah, it wasn't the ideal surface you sort of want, but you know, as I say, it sort of made you have to be just a bit more sort of outside the box and more, you know, just sort of tactical, because there wasn't a wicket where you could just keep 3 slips in all the time, and you know, you'd think an edge would come if we bowled well. You know, I know Robert mentioned it the other night in the press conference about what do we do in Pakistan, and actually being out there actually gave us a lot of sort of things to look back on and what worked for us, and I think it worked, you know, very, very well this week. I think the way in which we set our fields, the way in which the lads bowled, you know, sort of created wickets through that. But yeah, it was a very tough wicket to sort of produce wickets that you can eventually see in English conditions. But yeah, it was a real sort of mind game, sort of captaincy thing that I thought I had to do, because as I say, it's not too often you find yourself only having 1 slip at a number 9 and a number 10 at the back end of the day, especially with a new ball.
Matt, Will?
Ben, what was your reaction when you saw deep points out the first over, right back at the first over of the game, and Australia's tactics throughout, which you might say were a bit defensive?
Yeah, it's not something I've seen too often, but as I say, I think, you know, it's a positive in what how we've played. That sort of, that's the first thing that Australia go to. But you know, I said in the dressing room after that day one is Australia do Australia, and we do we. If that makes sense. I probably say that a bit better, but yeah, we'll keep doing what we do, and Australia will sort of just let them operate in the way they think the best way to operate against us is.
Yeah, in their heads at all?
In their what, sorry?
In their heads at all with the way you're playing?
I don't know. Not sure.
Will, and we'll go George, Adam, and finish with Dean.
Ben, when you and Baz suffered your first loss last summer against Africa, your message was very much, we're going to go harder. Actually, we didn't kind of. Is that going to be the message this time, or is it kind of embedded enough now, this style, that you don't need to say that?
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously that was very early on in my captaincy and Baz's, you know, coaching role. Whereas now, I've said a few times over the last week, as we know how the best way that we play is. So the message will change from what was said against that loss against South Africa to today. It's just more of the same for the rest of the 4 games. Yeah, so it's a lot simpler message to be able to deliver after this loss than it was against that loss against South Africa.
George?
Similar game in a way to the Wellington one, in that it's, you know, fantastically memorable and all the rest of it. You sound quite different. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You sound more disappointed. Is that because it's the Ashes?
No, I think it's because I was out on the field for, you know, obviously bowling and stuff. I'm not gonna lie, I'm physically pretty drained. Whereas Wellington, it was sort of like mentally draining because I couldn't do anything because I was just sat there watching. It's a completely different feeling when you have the emotions and the adrenaline of being out in the field in those situations with the crowd going and knowing the game's on the line. So you go from this big high to then obviously losing to a big low. But that's just how the emotions of sport work. You know, I am obviously devastated we've lost that game, but you know, I think in terms of what it's done for the series and the first game, it's hard to not be too disappointed, if that makes sense, because I think it's going to set up. Well, it has set up a great series.
Adam one, and then Dean last one.
Ben, is there anything you wish you'd have done differently today?
No.
And this time next week, well, Wednesday next week, if you were in the same position at Lords, would you declare?
If if we're in the same position.
As in the first innings?
Yeah, I would like to be 398 for 6 with 20 minutes left. That'd be great.
Dino, last one, please.
The catch off Nathan Lyon. Your kind of reaction to that, in the sense that are you sort of mindful of that being one of 20 or 30 things that, you know, had an impact on the game, and the way that you kind of portray it or the way that you behave thereafter is quite an important one, a message to send to the rest of the team?
Yeah, who knows if, you know, if I did take that catch, we could have got, you know, Josh out first ball and we win the game. But Josh could have came in, they still could have knocked the runs off. You know, you just never know. Yeah, God, it's amazing. Like, I mean, sort of going back to Headingley with Gaz, you know, dropping the ball over the stumps. It's amazing the sort of how the world comes around, isn't it? You know, I dropped that catch and then he's not out at the end. Being there as the winning team, being out there as a not out batsman for Australia, it's mad how things go around, isn't it? But yeah, just reliving it in my head now, like it was in my hand, and yeah, just didn't manage to stick. I just didn't pick it up, to be honest, because it's quite a hard seeing ground when it first comes off the bat, especially square of the wicket, so didn't quite gauge of where it was going initially, and then I thought it was actually going to be here to start, but then realised it was going over my head. But yeah, one of those shoulda, coulda, woulda moments. Would have been a good catch though, wouldn't it? But, oh well.
Brilliant, thank you. Cheers, Ben.
Thanks guys, cheers.
See you at Lord's.